antennas. A portable antenna is any antenna that doesn't require Terry Martin to put up. It doesn't require an air cannon, a ladder, a fire truck, a lifting platform. Typically you're going to person carry it to the site, installed by one or two people, preferably one within a short period of time. That implies that the antenna is going to be low to the ground. You're probably not bringing an air cannon to a public park. You're probably not bringing an air cannon to the beach because there's nothing to use for the air cannon, right? So let's remember the horizontal antennas low to the ground have higher takeoff angles. If you've got a 40-meter antenna and you've only got it up 10 feet, that's well below a quarter wavelength. That's going to be an NVIS antenna. The signal is going to go up, bounce off the ionosphere, come back down with about a 100-mile radius. The exception to that is if you're on a tall building or steep hill, cliff top. That's like having your antenna 1,000 feet above ground or whatever. So when you see, a lot of times you'll see these things like somebody, well, I took my buddy pole up to the top of whatever mountain, my buddy pole horizontal, and I got 3,000 miles. I don't understand what you're saying. Well, yeah, you're on the top of a mountain. That's like having your antenna 10,000 feet above ground. Of course you were. So you may not work distant stations if you're using a low horizontal antenna, because your signal is going to go like this. The distant station, who's got a nice beam up on top of a 65-foot tower, he's got a nice angle, and he's hitting you here, but your signal's only going there. So if you're going to put up a horizontal antenna, you have to understand that you're mostly going to be local stations. And only those local stations who have a similar kind of antenna situation to be able to bounce and hit you. NVIS is controlled by what's called the maximum usable frequency, also called the F0, F2. There are places you can see what it is currently on the web. If you're operating above the MUF for the current conditions, your signal is going up into space. So for example, I'm always hearing these Aries guys who are going, well, we'll just put up a 20-meter NVIS antenna. Around here, there is no such thing as a 20-meter NVIS antenna. The MUF, maximum MUF, in the middle of the winter day might be 10 megahertz. Maybe, and that's fairly rare. So you try to put up an antenna for 20 meters or 10 meters, that signal's just going straight up in the air. Antennas close to the ground become omnidirectional. So if you put up an antenna that's only 10 or 20 feet above ground, you have an omnidirectional horizontal antenna, 10 or 20 feet above ground. You have an omnidirectional antenna that's very good for about a 100-mile radius. On vertical antennas, on the other hand, are omnidirectional and tend to be distant antennas, especially when mounted on the ground, because the vertical antenna is trying to bounce a signal off the ground at a slight angle and get a bounce way far away. So vertical means DX. So if you're going out in the field and you want to do DX, you want to put up a vertical antenna. But notice verticals may not work close-in stations. It's the exact flip of the horizontal. So if you take a vertical antenna and you want to talk to somebody who's 100 miles away, chances are you can't. Okay. So I went with a buddy pole a long time, this is actually a couple years ago already, and got exactly the expected results. From Cape Cod with a vertical, I was hitting Europe, I was hitting Argentina, I couldn't talk to anybody in Boston. I was on Cape Cod. When I set it up as a horizontal antenna, I could talk to Boston fine. I could hear Europe, I could hear South America, but I couldn't talk to them at all. Just, proof. And remember, you also have to consider what antenna they're using. Because if you've got a vertical and they've got a horizontal, you may not be able to hit them and they may not be able to hit you. Okay, and this is just reference of wavelengths. We won't do it right now. There's nothing to go over right now. A lot of people use short dipoles for portable operations. That's the buddy pole. That's probably the best known. They do a lot of advertising. And you always see him with his picture. Here he is. This is the guy who invented, that's Bud. And it's great, and boy, I take it with me down to the Caribbean, and I get, 3,000, 5,000 miles on 10 watts. Well, he's up on top of a very tall hill by the ocean. Salt water is great for DX. Being up on top of a hill is great for DX. Guess what? He gets great DX. This particular antenna goes 40 to 2 meters with these coils. You tap the coil for whatever band you're on. And these are whips that are adjustable, so you may have to adjust the whips. It's a great antenna. I have one. It can be configured as a dipole. It can be configured as a vertical. It can be configured as an L, an inverted V, or an L. Now, an L is a vertical antenna. So, you can configure it as a vertical. That's a vertical antenna. You can configure it as a vertical dipole, which is really cool because then you don't need radials. And you can get some really good stuff. I take that out in my backyard, and with 25 watts, I break pile-ups in Argentina. I had some guy in Austria yelling at me one time because he didn't believe that I was only running 25 watts. A vertical on the ground is going to be very good for distance. Another favorite, ham sticks mounted as a dipole. Ham sticks, they're a piece of typically plastic or fiberglass, and they've got a wire wrapped around them. So the ham stick may only be about 9 feet long, but it's got 30 or 40 or 50 feet of wire on it. So you get, you get the full length.
I think they stopped making them now.
Ham sticks is out of business, but MFJ makes them, and there's one other company. The original ham stick company is no longer in business. End-fed half-length single wires. You always see these advertised as EFHW, end-fed half waves. The best known probably is the PAR end-feds. There's also Chameleon makes one. Basically what you've got is a matching network. It's really just a balun. The radiator, and you're going to have a ground. So here's your coax coming into the matching network. You have got a ground on one side and a half wave or approximately half wave. Most of these are single band, I said. And as we're going to see in a minute, if it's truly a half wave, you don't actually have to ground it.
Do you have one of these?
No, I don't.
Yeah, I've got one for 80 and one for 40.
Yeah.
And it's been my experience. You can stretch them out on a tall tree, round with wire.
Yeah.
Got pretty decent results with them.
Yeah. One of the things with this, of course, it's just wire. If you can shoot the wire up, you get a vertical. There's no reason why you can't use it as a vertical. Do you have a question?
Yeah. They frequently talk about you just take a long wire and throw it out someplace, and it's not tuned to any particular frequency. How does that work?
Actually, I'm going to show one later. Okay. Yep. No, it's the next slide after this. Okay. So other end-fed options, you got your coax out to a 9-to-1 balun or a tuner right here. And I'm going to show this again in a minute. And then a half wavelength. One of the things you can do, this is the classic zip or ZEP. You make it out of zip cord. Zip cord is the twin wire that's used for appliances. Quarter wavelength matching stub, half wavelength radiator, and this will match with almost a 1-to-1 ratio. This is the classic wave.
That's a standard end-fed Marconi.
It's a standard end-fed Marconi, or also called a Zeppelin. That's what they did on the early Zeppelins. You can't mount towers on Zeppelins, on airships, so they, put an antenna out the back, and it works beautifully. You notice there's no tuner. Here we go. Random length, long wire with a small lightweight tuner. The random wire and a tuner, that the other side is grounded. And what you're doing, notice the tuner is right here, right at the start. It's not back at the rig. The antenna starts from this point on, the tuner just matches. So the rig is seeing 50 ohms, and the antenna is seeing whatever it wants to see. And these random length wires are really good if you can put the tuner out here. You can get those little MFJ portable tuners. They're not that, I think they're 60 or 90 bucks. They don't have a meter on them, but most rigs have a meter on them. Not that one, obviously, but most rigs have a meter. So you tune with the meter, with the SWR meter on the rig.
The little silver box in the plastic bag there,
Yeah.
that is a tuner with an LED indicator.
Yeah. So here you go.
That's for an end-fed halfway.
So here you go. SWR, there's a little diode there. Tune or operate switch. There's your adjustment. The coax coming in. 2 posts up here. One is for the antenna, one is for the ground. And there you go. So that's a tuner. And all you're doing is using the tuner to fool the radio into seeing 50 ohms and fool the antenna into thinking it's a resonant frequency. Actually, I want to go back just for a second to this one. If any of you know John Cholet, I can't remember what it's called, from the Norwalk Club,
LOL.
Ham Source, LOL, yeah. He runs Ham Source, sells some ham radio equipment. One of the things he does when he goes to ham meetings is he brings an 857. He brings a 31-foot plexiglass or fiberglass staff. He takes one of these and he wraps it around the fiberglass mast. Okay? And he's got a beautiful antenna, depending on which size he took. He's got a great 20-meter or 40-meter antenna there. And he operates without a tuner. He operates without anything. He sticks it up in the air. He's got a vertical. Notice you don't need a ground on this. And he gets really good coverage with it.
John, he terminates it at the peak, or does he actually run it horizontal?
No, terminates at the peak. Terminates it at the peak. Now, with any of these, you can bring them up vertical and then across as an inverted L. You can make them slopers. You can do whatever you want. So you can set this up as a vertical if you can get a lineup. In his case, he's setting up it as a vertical by using that fiberglass mast. So anyway, does that answer your question?
Yeah.
One that's always fun, it's still around, it's been around for years and years and years, is this yo-yo. It's basically 2 yo-yos with wire wrapped around them. You extend it out, and you've got enough wire for a 40-meter dipole. You throw one end up in a tree, you throw the other end up in a tree, and away you go. And these weigh just enough that you can toss it up. Not very high, but you can toss it up.
I've got the original version, the high gain dipole. It's a tape dipole. Pulls it out, marked in frequency. Pull it out to the frequency you want to operate. Bring it up.
And away you go. Okay, so.
And if somebody wants to borrow it, I'll lend it out.
Okay. So there are a number of portable vertical antennas. Most of them use a counterpoise. A counterpoise is like a radio, except it's not buried in the ground. It's above ground, and it's electrically isolated from the ground. In essence, all this is a dipole. The radiator is one half of the dipole, the counterpoise is the other half of the dipole. Except it's got the vertical element. You take a dipole and you move one of the arms of the dipole vertically instead of horizontally. But it can't have an electrical connection with the ground.
Would that be directional?
Yes, it'll have some slight direction some slight directionality, more than a little slight, but some directionality in the direction of the counterpoise. You can buy these things. One of the things I started with when I got back into ham radio was the MFJ window antenna. It's an antenna you just put in the window. It's got a little base at the bottom. You close the window on the base. It sticks out at about an 80 or 70 degree angle, and it's got a counterpoise, and it's a vertical.
And a variety of coils.
And a variety of coils to match to the band. For my first couple of months of operating, I was operating with that, with a K1 at 5 watts or 10 watts, I think 10 watts. And I got about 30 states and a couple of countries. Not bad. And that K1 you saw was one of those nice portable radios. It's somewhat expensive, but it's a nice portable multi-band radio. Some of the other common verticals that all look, most of which look like this. This is the MP1. It's got a base. It's got some sort of tripod. Here's the antenna. That's a matching coil. There's the buddy stick, which is just like the buddy pole, except it's a stick. It's only a single vertical. It's got a matching coil in it. This is essentially the same kind of thing. If you have a buddy pole, you can just set up your buddy pole as a vertical. There's no difference. Chameleon has one. They don't actually have the tripod, but they've got a multi-band from 80 meters to 2 meters. They got a couple of them now. And you can set them up in any sort of orientation you want. Vertical, L, inverted L, sloper. Terry, you look like you want to say something.
Good thing.
Okay, and the MFJ apartment, which, listen, if you're desperate, it actually works. What the hell? Some verticals can be managed as vertical dipoles. We don't hear about vertical dipoles much. It has all the advantages of a dipole in that you don't have to have a counterpoise, you don't have directionality, you don't have to worry about radials, and it's a good antenna. It's mounted vertically, so it's going to be a DX antenna, as long as you can get it up high enough. So it's very nice. When I take my buddy pole out, a lot of times I operate as a vertical dipole. I get excellent results with it. They're all short, so they use loading coils. With the loading coil, you're adjusting this tap point to get a 1-to-1 ratio, and you may be adjusting the whip also slightly. You can get 1-to-1, near 1-to-1. You get out there and you can get some great coverage with 2 watts or 4 watts or 10 watts. Some things to consider if you're operating portable, any RF exposure issues, because when you're operating portable, you're probably going to be much closer to the antenna than you are when you're home. So just remember, there's charts. The FCC has a chart of exposure issues. If you look at it, they're saying on 20 meters, the power they have to worry about is if you go above 225 watts. You're probably not going above 225 watts if you're operating portable, but you know that there's some crazy out there who's going to put up a short vertical and takes his amp and takes everything else, runs a power cord back and plugs it in, like outside the window of your house or something. So just beware. Possible bystander safety issues. Even if you're only at 2 or 5 watts, the ends of the antenna can get up to 1,000 volts or so during the course of the cycle. So if your antenna is someplace that a pedestrian can just walk, a spectator can walk over and say, "Oh, what's this?"
How about a squirrel?
Terry knows.
Put a couple of peanuts at the end.
Terry knows the story. Terry put up an 80-meter dipole for me. It was my first real antenna, and some of it went through a tree. And after a while, I noticed that the dogs were all congregating at the end of the property where the antenna went into the tree. And one day I'm operating, all of a sudden the radio, just for an instant, goes, zzz, the needles go, the dials go all crazy. And I look out the back, and the dogs are busy eating a squirrel. What happened? The squirrel was in the tree, had touched the antenna as I was transmitting, got a zap, fell down. The dogs had it.
Barbecue in the middle.
Lightly seared.
Welcome to the redneck hammer.
Right. And the dogs would sit there for hours, just sit under that spot on my yard, and they would just sit there, and you could see the drool pouring out of their mouth as they were anticipating the next squirrel.
Dog cargo cult.
What'd you say?
It's like a cargo cult.
Yes, it's like a cargo cult. It really is. Other dangers, if you have guy wires, because some of these you're going to want to guy, especially those horizontal dipoles. You may want to guy them in strong winds. If you have guy wires, your spectators can trip over them. If you've got a big tripod like the buddy pole uses, it's a fairly substantial tripod that can tip over onto somebody. And of course, you've got a feed line usually running right out to the along the ground to the antenna. and you can have bystanders tripping on it. So you really have to be careful. You know, if you're going to go down to the beach and it's a busy beach, you got to consider that. You may have RF feedback issues, especially with digital. Digital is very susceptible to RF feedback because it's pulses, it's naturally pulses. Your antenna is going to be close to your rig, your antenna is going to be close to your computer. And these computers have no RF ground point on them. No, the laptops just don't have any RF ground points. I was dealing with a guy today trying to help him. He could use digital. He bought himself a new 950, FT950, and some sort of a laptop. And FLDigi wasn't working for him. We finally determined that FLDigi wasn't working for him on anything above 4 megahertz. Why? Because of RF feedback coming into the shack. And he had no real way to ground the computer. Now, part of the problem was the way he had his shack laid out. For example, the feed line ran right behind the computer. So we're working to, rearrange his shack and get him some ferrite beads and things like that. Put a choke on his feed line where it comes into the shack. But that computer would just shut itself down every time you started transmitting. Anything above about 4 megahertz. So you need to consider that if you're going to do digital. And some of the aids to launching antenna satellites. This is something that John sells. This is a weight with a rope. Get it up into a tree. Slingshots, you've seen slingshots, you know about slingshots. This is the easy hang, really nice slingshot. But this may not be allowed in public parks because it's considered a weapon.
It's an interesting bit of trivia that has come to light that I only learned in the last 2 weeks. In most jurisdictions, if that arm piece isn't on the slingshot, it's not explicitly illegal.
Right.
What makes it explicitly illegal
Is
when you
this
have
arm
it.
piece here,
Yeah.
because it adds, it
Now it's 100.
dramatically increases
By definition.
the range and power at which it hits. So in fact, what's his name? Quicksilver. He sells a slingshot that doesn't have this arm piece. The problem with his slingshot is that it's a lightweight piece of crap and it breaks after about 2 tries. I've gone through 3 of them. I bought one at a ham fest one day, the Nutmeg Ham Fest, got it home after 2 tries, the handle just disintegrated. So I sent it back to him, he sent me a new one. After 2 or 3 tries, the metal, this is metal here, it just snapped. And I sent it back to him after 2 or 3 tries, something else happened, and I said, okay, that's it.
Do
Done.
you still have your original set of bands for your original easy hang that I managed to screw up on you, or did you ever manage to fix that?
I bought a new one, I don't know what I did with the bands.
Okay. So you do have a new one? It's serviceable?
It's not a slingshot, it's something else. I mean, it's not an easy hang, but it's something else, yeah.
All
it's
right, I'll
serviceable.
talk to you about what I got. I can hand it out
Okay.
if you want.
They are illegal to sell in Westchester County.
Really? Okay. What I have is, I bought something from PetSmart. It's a tennis ball launcher for dogs. Okay? It's got the handle.
Yes, it's the.
No, not that. This is a slingshot.
Yeah.
Okay, it's just like the easy hang, but it's got this whole superstructure for holding the tennis balls and making the next tennis ball roll into the thing. It was a lot less than the easy hang, and then I put a fishing rod. This is a standard Zebco 33,
Yeah.
and that's all this is. So I bought one, I mounted it on the thing, and I now got a slingshot.
Yeah, you always gotta remember to turn the drag off.
Yes.
Or you'll lose your
Yeah.
lead weight.
The-
will go
the drag-
flying off somewhere.
Drag means that as the line's coming out, it's being held back by a brake.
Yeah.
When you use a slingshot,
He's gotta.
it's not moving it's not moving fast enough, and that line is just going to snap,
And your weight's gonna
and your
go
weight's going to go
flying.
flying someplace.
Aye.
If you come to my backyard and you look carefully in the trees around my backyard, you will see you can buy these yellow weights for this. I mean, you can just go get regular silver weights at any fishing place, but you paint them yellow, or you go spend the extra money for yellow ones so you can see them. if you look up in the trees, you know, what's that, you know, and there's a tennis ball hanging over there, and there's a whatever. And one day and there are like 3 of them hanging over my neighbor's yard, and one day my neighbor said, what the hell is that? I don't know. Boy, that's weird, isn't it?
I recently had a problem with my fisher reels. I built a gun similar to Terry's, and I've been using it for a long time. One of my antennas came down. I shot up a new line over. Full fishing reel, up and over, and about 10 feet over the tree. I ran out of line. It wouldn't hold enough.
Oh. Okay. Well, I mean, that's a...
Trees grew too high.
Okay, yeah. I had one, I was helping my brother put up some antennas, and I don't know what happened. As it fired, it went up, and I guess it hit a branch, and it went off directly horizontally. You know, and so when all came to rest, and we started trying to find it, and we're looking for this yellow weight, and we couldn't find it, so we're reeling in slowly. And over like 60 feet away, there's this thing. You know, it didn't actually go up very high, but it went pretty far.
They're dangerous.
Okay. One of the things you can use is PVC, fiberglass, or aluminum mass. This is made from PVC, just regular old 2-inch PVC that you can buy at any hardware store. This is a military surplus. These were really intended for putting up tents, but you buy these, they come in 4-foot sections. You can go up to about 40 feet, 48 feet. They just, stick into each one. If you're going to put it over much above 24 feet, you need to guy it. There are guy pieces that you can get for guying. Bases like this, or bases that are basically big, not triangle, but things like spikes, put in the ground. So those are effective, so you just run your vertical up this thing. Or there are either aluminum or fiberglass telescoping masts. You can get them from MFJ. You can also get them from John. I've got a couple of the masts from John. He's got them in various heights. The 31-footer I find tends to be a little too flimsy at the top. I mean, it just bends too much. It works fine, but I find that it bends too much. But you can buy these telescoping fiberglass masts. Jacite sells them for putting up flags and stuff like that. And I think that's it. Yeah, that's it. So these are options. You take something like this, you take something like a buddy pole or buddy stick with you out to the field. Again, you can set it up right where you are, wherever you are. You take something nice and lightweight, so you're not packing up a 756 and a power supply and a tuner and blah blah blah, and you can have a good time. And don't forget those end-fed half waves or the random wire. All you need is a little tuner from like that little tuner or the little tuner from MFJ, and away you go.
And make sure you're prepared with a good route for what it is you're doing. When curious citizens walk by, give you that jaded look, and respond to all the propaganda ads they've been watching for the last 10 years and say, call this number if you see it.
Right.
You see anything?
Well, or you just go the other way and you start speaking to them Arabic. When I was in college during the height of the anti-Vietnam War demonstrations. I was in the school radio station, and one day we were running an audio line out to a certain location on campus where the protests usually took place, so we could directly feed back to the station. We were digging a trench and burying it, and it's 3 o'clock in the morning, some dumb frat boys come along. What are you guys doing? So of course we go, oh yeah, we're just laying the primer cord. About an hour later, NYPD, FBI. I mean, it just. So anyway, all right, thank you.
Very good.
Very good.
And of course, you come and install them, right?
Hmm?
You